All right, today we're going to talk about the two types of tokens that are outperforming in this market and are likely going to keep outperforming this market in the near and probably distant future, because I don't see this trend going away. And the key to making money right now are positioning in the next coins to benefit from these trends. Now, the two trends I'm speaking about are A, coins that are exhibiting buybacks and have a positive flywheel. This is a massive narrative in the market, which has resulted in coins like Hyperliquid and Pump performing so well. And B, the DAT narrative, so the Treasury company narrative, is obviously in full swing. We've had Bitcoin and Sailor being bid up to crazy levels off the back of this flywheel. We've had Ethereum making a big move into all-time high off the back of this flywheel. We've had WorldCoin pulling a 2x over the past few days off the back of this flywheel. Solana as well. And what we're going to be discussing in this video, and I've dug through all the data, what coins could potentially be getting a DAT next. That's a very important thing to be aware of, because if you are aware of what coins could be getting a treasury company next, you put yourself in the best possible position to front run the market. Also in this video, I'm going to give you my update on Bitcoin, because a couple of things have happened since yesterday. TLDR Asia sessions have been quite strong, and then we basically get absolutely slammed at the end of Europe and leading into the US session. This has been a trend over the past few weeks, but I'll discuss that in more depth today. I want to touch on altcoins as well, because I do believe we are about to see a rotation, and I'm going to show you exactly how that rotation is going to take place on the Bitcoin dominance chart. And also, today is a show full of giveaways. So if you commented on yesterday's video, stick around, because at some point in this video, I'm going to be picking a comment, answering your question, and you're going to win $500. So make sure to stick around for that. And of course, comment on this video to be eligible for the next one, which is going to be tomorrow. And at the end of this video as well, I'm going to be picking random people that are signed up to my Blofin to get $100 airdrops. We'll do as many as I feel like doing. We'll decide later in the show. I'm going to keep giving back to you guys, and these are just some small things that I'm implementing right now. We also have big stuff coming in the future to really give back to the community. That's a big focus of mine at the moment. But let's chat alpha first. Bitcoin. Bitcoin right now is in this range. I'm not going to harp on about it. I feel like I've spoken about this range for a long time because we've been in a range for a long time. But I think the key thing to be aware of is this 113.5 level. Once again, yesterday, I filmed a video into resistance. I said in yesterday's video that although altcoins look quite strong, you've got to be aware of the fact Bitcoin is heading into resistance. And obviously, it tagged this level again and ended up hitting range low. But I do want to at least give you a little bit of a silver lining, even though we technically got rejected. Bitcoin has, in my opinion, actually shifted trend. So just in terms of how trends form, trends are typically established by a series of lower highs. I'm talking about a downtrend now, and lower lows. So you could see the price action for Bitcoin for a number of weeks was making lower highs and lower lows. What we are seeing now, which is quite encouraging, is actually higher highs and higher lows. Definitely higher lows starting to form, but the higher high has not technically been breached because we rejected off this level. So for me, if you just want to draw a simple trend line, Bitcoin has, at least on the H4 and H1, reversed from a downtrend to a new uptrend. This is a good low time frame signal that we may be compressing into resistance for a potential breakout back to range high. And the time trigger for this is probably going to be around the FOMC rate decision, which is happening in 7 days' time. And that's obviously going to cause a bit of volatility in the market. So on Bitcoin, this is basically what I'm charting. I'm charting whether or not we can accept above the 113.5 level. And I'm charting right now the lower time frame on the H4 and H1 higher lows in the market, because ultimately, Bitcoin does tend to lead the altcoins, even though there are altcoin outperformers, and we're going to discuss the two categories of outperformers today. I'm going to give you some alpha there. Oh, I also forgot I have Gem of the Day today. This is a new series I'm doing where every single day I give you my top pick of the day, gun to my head. Like, if I had to buy a gem or a low cap, what would I buy today? That is something we're going to start doing every single show, so make sure you subscribe. And I do have a good one today that I think matches the narrative of the market quite well. But overall, that is what I'm watching on Bitcoin. But as Jason says, S&P 500 just closed a new high. Gold also making new all-time highs. One day, Bitcoin will revisit this feeling of disbelief that a new all-time high is here, while the masses keep thinking a recession is any day now. Keep following the trend. So I'm seeing a lot of talk about Bitcoin topping. I know Adsom's been speaking a lot about this, but at the end of the day, stocks are making new highs. Gold's making new highs. The business cycle's in full effect. We're about to get a rate cut. You can bet on the fact we have topped, but I don't think it's a probabilistic bet. And in the markets, any market for that matter, not just crypto, you are trading based on probabilities. You're trying to make EV bets that skew in your favor, asymmetric bets that skew in your favor, bet over time, and those small wins compound into big portfolio gains. That's the way to play pretty much any market. In crypto, it's no different. We could try and short on the fact that maybe a top's in, but that would be going against the entire macro cycle. And as long as the macro uptrend is intact, and it's intact on Bitcoin, it's intact on stocks, it's intact on gold, which also highlights that it's intact for the business cycle as a whole, I can't be one to flip bearish. I'm going to keep going with the trend. If we're wrong, we're wrong. We have downside invalidations, but I am, betting with my own money and my own reputation that is not going to be the case, at least probabilistically speaking. So if that's the case, then we still have to look for opportunities, and those opportunities are long as we're in a macro uptrend and not short. The question I'm about to answer from someone that commented on yesterday's video actually asked me about my positioning for Q4, so I think that's going to be a good question to answer. But first, I just want to go through two charts and talk about altcoins in general and what rotation we might actually see over the next couple of weeks. So firstly, I want to point out that Total 3, which is the index excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum, looks really strong. We continue to compress into a key resistance level. I think this breakout could be quite explosive for altcoins, but just keep in mind that it is on the weekly, and if this does resolve, it might not happen till October, November, just according to the chart here. Of course, anything can happen. We can also come down and sweep before we end up reclaiming, but this whole range is between September and actually May next year. So this is in line with my thesis that we will see a big breakout for Bitcoin and altcoins in Q4 or Q1. I've been saying that since the very start of this year, and I was also saying that during the tariff stuff. Remember that video I did on the couch, and I said, I'm buying Bitcoin here at 75K, and I think we make a high in Q4 or Q1. Yeah, that video, I haven't changed my opinion since that video. So the last 6 months, I've had the exact same outlook. Obviously, the path is rocky, and we've had ups and we've had downs, but that is still the path that we're on, and nothing on the charts suggests or is compelling me to actually change my thesis. In fact, having gold exploding higher is actually giving my thesis even more credibility, in my opinion, as Bitcoin typically lags gold. So when gold goes on these huge runs, Bitcoin typically catches up. We've seen that correlation in the past. Now, going back to altcoins, there's an interesting dynamic at the moment. Bitcoin dominance on the H4 and daily is actually dropping. Now, for me, price action suggests that balance of probabilities, we actually come down and sweep this level. So what I'm doing is, as we head towards this level, I am making a bit of a move that I want to update you on. I'm going to be shifting some of my alt positions that I'm heavily in profit on, and also some lagging positions as well, because I want to rebalance my portfolio a bit. I'm going to be shifting a little bit into Bitcoin because I do believe the gold run is going to force a dominance bounce at some point. Now, I don't know when it's going to happen. Obviously, alts can run for the next couple of weeks to complete this trend, but what I do think happens is Bitcoin dominance reverses at some point, and we potentially get a move to the upside. And this is a lot clearer, I think, on the weekly chart here. You can see that, Bitcoin dominance, although it has these downtrends, it does have these bounces. And, you can see here, it bounced, here it bounced, here it bounced. Obviously, that was an uptrend. Since it's formed a downtrend, it's had one bounce. I think at this level, we're probably due for another one. So in terms of actively positioning in terms of Bitcoin dominance, I'm looking at the H4, and as we go towards this level, I'll look to set some ladder orders on some of my alts going back into Bitcoin, because we're not at the stage of the cycle where I really want to keep going into stables. Like, I'm already 40% stables. This is something I've spoken about on prior shows. I was actually 50% in prior shows, so my altcoin exposure has actually increased a little bit. My Bitcoin exposure, because I've added Bitcoin, Sol, and Hype, and ENA a couple of weeks ago, my exposure's increased a little bit, and I don't really want to go too much heavier into stables. I'm pretty comfortable around that level at the moment. So what I want to do is I want to switch more into Bitcoin. So I'm kind of taking profits into Bitcoin at this stage in the cycle. And I do think we see a little bit more altcoin outperformance before we see the bounce. That would be ultimately an opportunity to, for me to shift a bit more into Bitcoin, capitalize on the Bitcoin run, and then we'll probably see another rotation again. And that thesis will probably make a bit more sense as we get into the whole DAT discussion that I want to have today about Treasury companies, because that is what's causing the rotations in the market and that speculative front-running effect at the moment. So all of this ties in to my theory on Bitcoin dominance and the chart as well. But I want to pick the comment now that's going to win the giveaway from yesterday's video, because it's aligned with exactly what I'm talking about now, and that is a comment from Trader Bacino, and they say, sorry if I butchered the pronunciation there, they said, how are you planning to approach Q4? Are you leaning more towards active perp trading in a strong uptrend, bidding EMAs, or are you building positional higher time frame spot trades with potential outcomes? If it's the latter, what's your process for identifying those outperformers? This is a great question because I believe this applies to most people. And by the way, Trader Bacino, you are going to get, am I butchering that name again? You are going to get $500. So all you need to do is go into the video where you commented, so this exact comment, reply to yourself with your wallet address. I'm going to send you Tether, so USDT. Tell me what chain you want it on. So just write USDT Sol or USDT ETH, either Solana or Ethereum. I'm going to be sending you Tether though. So comment on the last video. I'm going to double check the usernames line up so no one's going to cheat the system, and you're going to win $500, and it's all going to be transparent and on chain. I'll even link the transaction hash below so you guys can verify that we're actually doing these $500 giveaways every day. And if you want to be in the running to win $500, every single video, I'm going to pick a comment, and you could win $500 if I pick your comment. So all you need to do is comment on this video, leave a comment. It could be a question, it could be an opinion that you want my thoughts on, or it could even be a statement, and I'm just going to pick something random every day, and you're going to win $500. So get commenting below, and your question could be featured tomorrow. But I'm going to answer this question now because it's very interesting. To answer your question, Trader B, I am leaning more towards actually positional higher time frame spot trades at the moment. By higher time frame, I'm looking mostly at the daily chart. And what I've tried to position in are a range of assets that are showing relative strength versus the market. Now, relative strength for me is how the price looks versus Bitcoin and ETH. It's actually not so much how the USD chart looks, although I will chart versus the US dollar to get an exact entry because that's what most people are looking at. So you're going to set your invalidations on the US dollar chart because that's what you're entering in. But really, I'm trying to determine whether that altcoin is outperforming Bitcoin and ETH and is in an uptrend versus Bitcoin and ETH. So, and I was, transparent with this a couple of weeks ago. The coins I've been buying, for example, are MNT, Pump, Hyperliquid. I've been looking at ENA. There's also been some other coins that I've added. All of these are showing price performance that are beating Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, I'm barbelling that 80% of my portfolio, which is like Bitcoin, ETH, Solana. I've also added Hyperliquid, ENA, Pump, etc., with a 20% of my portfolio, which is much more degen. This is the active trading part of my portfolio where I'm taking, a lot of dart throws. Some might go to zero, but, hopefully I hit some low cap darts, which can make me a lot of gains. So the way I'm positioning my portfolio right now is 80% safer in coins that are outperforming, and I'm getting in on dips. So I feel like I've done most of my accumulating already, but I may, if there's another dip, maybe ladder in even further. But then where I'm spending more of my energy and more of my time is on that 20% where I can potentially hit some gems. And I'm going to, in Gem of the Day today, reveal a gem for you. I've also got another gem I think that's launching very soon. So we're going to bring you all the alpha in today's show regarding where I'm focusing, and my research team is focusing their energy. But a lot of my energy goes on that 20% because the rest of it is pretty simple because I'm not, as you mentioned here, too over-indexed in terms of perps. My perp portfolio is doing well. I'll give you an update on the show in future days, but it's not a portfolio that I'm actively managing too much because it just depends on the meta. When perp trading is really in full swing, when you're in a clear uptrend in the market, it can be amazing. Like when Bitcoin is in a clear uptrend, perp trading is brilliant. I mean, we've had this entire period was great for perp trading, right? Because we would consolidate, we would make a range, then we'd see a breakout, consolidate, make a range, see a breakout. There were, range low trades to load up aggressively into. There were breakout trades to load up aggressively into. So many entries that were also corresponding on alts. I think the problem is right this second, and this could change in a couple of weeks, but at the moment, the perp trading environment is difficult due to the choppiness of the market. Naturally, I've shifted my focus more to just spot trading and on-chain stuff. So hopefully that answers your question. Once again, if you do have a question, leave a comment below. And Trader Brachino, leave your wallet address and let me know what chain you want your USDT on as a comment to your last comment on yesterday's video. So if you guys do comment today, you'll need to watch tomorrow to see if you won. And congrats, you've won $500. Choose your altcoins wisely, but maybe today's video will help you maybe get some ideas because we're going to talk about two very powerful narratives, which I want to start with the buybacks first. So buybacks in this market are a real trend, and it's an interesting trend because what we're seeing is a speculative premium on future buybacks. So the market is pretty efficient. When a project announces buybacks, it'll get an instant boost as people speculate on future positive flows for the coin. There are discretionary buybacks. This is pretty much where the team just decides what it wants to do. It can do a huge one, a small one. It has full control. This is not very transparent. So it's not as transparent as Hyperliquid, for example, but it's very efficient in terms of execution because they can choose when to do buybacks. So although Pump is now a little bit more hybrid, like they are consistent, but they're also a bit discretionary. When they first launched, they were purely discretionary. The market started to favor them a little bit since they've shifted models and become a bit more transparent. Hyperliquid's obviously the biggest success story. They're very transparent, but I guess what transparency doesn't enable you to do is time the market and actually protect downside, which can make people feel more comfortable holding your token. So a lot of projects, they'll start with discretionary buybacks to kick off the flywheel, and then they will shift further towards programmatic or hybrid models, which actually enable you to consistently do buybacks over time. And I think this is the preferred model of the market right now. So let's recap a few projects which are executing buybacks. Now, by the way, I'm not saying every single project that you hold needs to have buybacks. There are amazing projects which run off the back of narrative alone. That's ultimately, attention and narrative are the most powerful things in crypto. But if it does have a buyback, there's a benefit from a tangible perspective because there's more liquidity actually being purchased, which is pushing price up. But also, it does help the narrative as well. It feeds back into the narrative because that's the current meta that is hot. So you're kind of getting a 2-for-1 deal right now when you get into a project that has narrative alignment and also has buybacks. So naturally, there's a lot of overlap in my portfolio and projects that have buybacks. And then after we go through some of these, we're going to go through the DATs, which is the Treasury companies, because they're the other sector of coins that are at least achieving a speculative premium right now. So Hyperliquid, I've held this for a while. In my opinion, it's pumped a lot, so I probably wouldn't look at entering now. But if there is a dip, I think you can still expect a bit more upside on hype. Obviously, I did that deep dive at 38. I've had public buy calls at 30, at 40, so if you've missed it, I feel like for now you have to be patient. There are plenty of other tokens. We'll discuss some today that probably look better from a chart perspective. Pump Fund, this is a token that I've recently been adding again. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of Pump Fund for Q4 because I just think it has a good alignment with the speculation on the Solana blockchain, and now combined with buybacks, I feel like there's a bit more momentum behind it, and this could take it. I mean, I don't think it's going to absolutely explode, but could definitely take it to a 10 to 15 bill FDV. I don't think that's crazy in the right market, especially if Solana kicks on to prior all-time highs as well. D-Bridge, I don't know much about, but they do have a 1.47% buyback ratio. Pump Fund actually has the biggest buyback ratio, which is one of the reasons I'm bullish on it, versus Hyperliquid at 0.73. So Pump Fund, and obviously, it's not at the same market cap because of this spectrum here. Since it's not programmatic, it's a bit more discretionary, so I would call it a hybrid model, but leaning towards this middle territory here. The market is discounting it a little bit, whereas Hyperliquid is basically a pure bet on the Hyperliquid blockchain itself. I guess another reason why Hyperliquid has done so well is because it's purely transparent, whereas even BNB, although it's loosely tied to the success of Binance, you can't really prove it, whereas Hyperliquid, you can definitely prove on-chain that you are literally basically buying equity in the company because it's programmed. So I think that's quite powerful. I'm just going to give you rough thoughts on all of these, based on my own opinion, but I'm actually going to put this spreadsheet in the Telegram. So if you are a member of my Telegram, it's free. You can join using the link in the description below. This is going to be left after this video, this entire spreadsheet, including part 2, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes with the DAT companies in the Telegram. So you can take this yourself. You can copy it, amend it, and, do what you will with it. Because I think that's way better than just screenshotting. You guys can actually have these resources for yourself. So link to the description to get that on Telegram. When I can, I'm going to drop these resources for you guys for free. So, okay, Jupiter. Let's quickly go through these. Jupiter, I like it, but I don't like it as much as Radium. I think Radium's the stronger play from a chart perspective. Radium's at a 0.3% buyback based on market cap. And if you look at Jupiter, it's 1.23%. I also want to mention that I got the idea for this spreadsheet from Rand. So Rand, you killed it with your show a couple of days ago. I really liked the show. I wanted to add to it with new information and give my own, take on all of this as well. So definitely shout out for creating the base here. And I've obviously added to it with some projects that I found and doing a bit more deep research. And then I've also got a second part, which I'll show you guys later. But yeah, shout out to Bounty. This was a good idea, and I'm certainly aligned with buybacks being the strong narrative in the market. Looking at Aerodrome next. Aerodrome's obviously the leading play on base. This is at 1.63% buyback versus market cap. I do like AERO as a hold because I think Coinbase is a very retail chain, but like a lot of these coins, you want to be getting in on pullbacks. And I don't think, although my outlook for the market is up overall, I don't think the market is immune to pullbacks, especially heading into the FOMC decision. We sometimes see some volatility around these events. So if you do look at even the total 3 chart on the weekly here, this looks extremely bullish. We still sometimes do have these pullbacks. I mean, we had a bit of a downtrend here. We had another sell-off here. We could potentially pump and then see another downtrend. As long as we're making higher lows, I'm still confident. So this list actually comes into play, I think, the most during periods of liquidation and periods where the market is going down. And you can also break out trade to the upside. There's a token I'm going to show you later in this video which falls under this category, which has a breakout to the upside as well. But quickly going through the rest of these, you have Sky, Pancake Swap. These come in at 1% and 0.7%. Ethify comes in at 0.3%. This is an ETH beta. Radium is one of my top picks here because it's one of the top dexes on Solana, and they also have buybacks, so you're kind of getting that 2-for-1 as I discussed. Gito as well. And scrolling down the list, Fluid is one that I like. Actually, if I chart Fluid live for you guys, this is actually coming into a decent buy zone after it pumped a lot, and I had a very good call on this in the Discord, but it finally has come back down for an entry. So just to give you guys a bit of alpha, I'm actually going to add to my position in this zone here. So we're getting very close to the zone. My ladder orders, because I have limit orders for a lot of these things, might actually start to trigger. Typically, I'll set up a grid or a TWAP over the next 24 hours. And then you've also got this level as invalidation, this wick low. Although your true invalidation is going to be under 4.5. So I think for spot traders, having a stop gap, so a gap between when you buy and when you get stopped out of 21% is fine, because let's say you put in 10K, the worst case you end up with 8K. But if you are, perp trading, you need to be a bit tighter and go into lower time frames and see what your reaction is like in this zone. But personally, that's not how I'm trading Fluid. More of a spot trade. You can either go tighter with a partial inval, or you can have full inval down here, which is probably what I'll do, because I think with spot positions in general, you don't want to be shaken out of the market with over-aggressive invalidations, but you still want to know what your max drawdown risk percentage is. So Fluid is a good one. They don't have full transparency over the buyback, but they do have a positive flywheel mechanism. They have a TWAP model built into the token. So if you extrapolated that, you could work it out. But for the purpose of this video, I only wanted to keep the hard numbers in. And then going down the list, none of these really interest me too much in terms of holding, but the one that does actually happens to be my gem of the day, which is Marinade. So once again, we are doing a new series on this show, and it's going to be Gem of the Day. Now, just to explain what this series is, it can be a lower cap token, so 10 million market cap. It could even be higher cap, 500 million, but it's kind of a situation of gun to my head. I have to pick an altcoin every single day to share. That's new. Maybe occasionally there'll be overlap, but I'm going to try my best to give you a new altcoin every day. So last week, some of the collectible stuff probably would have been on my list. We're a couple days early to that trend because I have this research group. I get so much alpha. I have 15 researchers in that group. I'm getting alpha all the time. The problem is because sometimes the topics of the shows don't align with the alpha, so it would seem out of place. So I never had a place to share this stuff. Whereas now, because we're doing this series, I can actually give you an alpha pick every single day. Now, I actually don't own this yet, but that's not the game. The game isn't for me to shill what I own. The game is to pick a token that I like from my research group and spotlight it for you on the show, and you can make a decision whether you want to buy it or not. There may be a case where I actually buy an altcoin that, let's say I mention it on the show today, I don't own it, and then in 3 days' time, I might end up buying it. That definitely is going to happen at times, and if I do own it, I'm going to disclose it on the show. So just so you guys have an idea as to my own positioning. Regarding Marinade, I do like it though. The only reason I don't own it is because I haven't had time to rebalance, and I already own Radium, and I have a barbell with my Solana that I'm pretty comfortable with, so I haven't found a way to squeeze it in, and I typically don't try and force allocating too quickly, but when I was reading up on it today, I do think genuinely EV skews to the upside, although it's probably best to wait for a dip on it. But overall, there's a few good things here. They launched MIP13, which allocates 50% of protocol fees to Buyback. So it actually is now a Buyback coin, 0.52% versus market cap, which is solid. It's in the top half of this list, although, not as big as a pump or anything. It's Buyback season, of course. That's why it's fitting into today's video quite well, I think. You can read up the case study. If you look up this tweet from Austin Barak, he does a full case study, which I thought was quite informative on MNDE. He basically lists some of the top reasons why this is outperforming right now. Basically, my TLDR is, if you're bullish on Solana, you can look at exposing yourself to some of the betas to get higher upside exposure. And with a token like this, it's kind of 2 for 1 because you get the buybacks, but you also get exposure to Solana. Here's an idea. What you can do, and I often do this, is run a barbell strategy. So let's say you hold $10,000 in Solana. You could have $10,000 in the overall ecosystem, 8K, 80% could be in Sol, and 2K, 20% could be in Radium, Marinade, and Jupiter. Let's say you could split it up between like 1, 2, or 3 tokens. So it's a barbell. Same with Ethereum. 80% could be in ETH, and then 20% could be in EIGEN, ENA, or an ETH beta. The only thing you need to make sure is that it's actually a beta or it's tied into the ecosystem. You know, I think with Ethereum, it can get a bit loosey-goosey because you can argue Aave or Fluid, and although technically they kind of are ETH betas because they do benefit from the ETH chain doing well, they're probably not as direct as maybe what a Jupiter or a Radium is to Sol, right? So that's just an idea for you. You can look at balancing your portfolio like that based on ecosystems. You can also do the same with Hyperliquid and other coins as well. But obviously for Hype, because Hype is such a leader, you would skew less into the eco, maybe like 5 to 10%, whereas Solana, there's much better eco coins. You can skew probably even to like 70-30. So I guess it's making sure that you have the correct amount of exposure to the leader, because if you are overexposed to the betas, if the, you know, Solana could rip to like $300, but you could be overexposed to the ecosystem and you might not actually benefit. So you might have worse risk-adjusted returns on that trade if you over-index. So you need to make a balance. That's why I think 80-20 in general is a good rule, but skewing based on conviction in these coins. So that is Gem of the Day. Make sure to subscribe because tomorrow we're going to do Gem of the Day again. And we're going to do it every day and day and day and day. And hopefully we hit a lot of bangers on the show. Not guaranteeing they go up, but as I already explained the process, I go through my research group every day. There's so many posts, and we work out as a team on the call, and then I do a final filter, like what do I want to highlight as Gem of the Day? And this is a higher market cap one. It's, I think, just under 100 mil, but there'll be times where we do low cap stuff and go degen. It obviously depends on the narrative of the market in general. Now, there's a new token which isn't on this buyback list, but I think could be, so it's one to look out for, and it's SOAR. So if you guys know Launchcoin, they were a very interesting model. I did a video on it at the time, on the ICM narrative, and it was a narrative that I was quite bullish on because I think a lot of businesses can actually bootstrap and get a lot of attention and liquidity through launching a crypto token. I mean, we've seen many AI companies now starting to launch tokens in crypto because they get great marketing and awareness and distribution through launching a token, and you can build community. But we've seen issues. We've seen Ben Pasternak on holiday. We've seen that they haven't implemented a proper flywheel. It's taken months and months and months. They didn't do it right, and they didn't, I think, support creators enough. And, you know, this is someone that had an amazing trade on Launchcoin and made, frankly, a lot of money off that Launchcoin trade, but, you know, and I even held some and it did badly, and this is off the back of I think their failure to actually capitalize and build a genuine product. I think teams out there have just been watching this evolve and slowly building in the background. And then I actually met SOAR the other day, and their model is very, very cool. So they are shifting the incentives around to make things better for the builders and also better for the users, which should lead, in theory, to better price performance of the underlying tokens. So keep your eye on this. They're going to be launching very soon. It's called SOAR, and it'll definitely be on this buyback list once they start implementing their flywheel. Give it as a competitor to Pump Fun and Launchcoin and Bonk, but like a better, new, and improved model. That's basically the way I would think about it. So keep your eye on that one. All right, so we've gone through the buybacks, but what we haven't gone through is DATs, treasury companies. This is the second category of tokens which are achieving a big speculative bid. So basically what's happened is you had MicroStrategy pushing Bitcoin. Then you had the Ethereum treasuries led by Tom Lee, the biggest one, pushing Ethereum. Then you have had some of these treasury companies start to launch, which are pushing Solana. They haven't had the same traction, but obviously just the speculation of them potentially getting traction one day have led to positive price appreciation in the Sol eco. Recently, we saw over the past 24 hours or 48 hours now, WorldCoin and Flock do really well off the back of potential treasury companies for them. ENA also had like a buyback scheme, which caused it to do really well. So it's very clear the narrative right now is buy pressure. The tokens with buy pressure through buybacks or treasury companies, which are adding buy pressure because they are raising money to accumulate the token, these coins are doing the best. So the big alpha is look at which ones are potentially coming next. Obviously, we just had WorldCoin. I still think long-term, fundamentally, that's a good one, except you probably want to wait for a dip. The one that I think still potentially undervalued, last time I checked it was around 100 mil, is Flock. I still think this is not quite valued at where it potentially should be. So I think there's a trade there. Look into that. It's also getting a DAT or is speculated to get a DAT. And like these are actually pending. These are confirmed to be pending. This isn't pure speculation. Where we get into pure speculative territory now are with ADA, XLM, and IP. These are all speculated quite heavily to be getting DATs. I could definitely see ADA getting one. So although I'm not a big fan of like ADA or XLM or even IP, like fundamentally, so I wouldn't hold a bunch of spot, I may be looking at trades on these. So I'm going to be trading these coins actively and are definitely on my watch list. So my advice would be go onto X, search up DATs, look at the speculation, follow the accounts that are speculating. Obviously on the channel, I'll keep you updated. And when you see speculation for these coins, chart them and look at breakout trades, because WorldCoin, for example, you had a big breakout trade, it came back down, you had like a partial retest, and then it flew. If you can have invalidation on breakout trades, these can be a great way to make money off the news eventually when the news comes, but you do have to have your finger on the pulse. So that's the way I would play them. I wouldn't be aping into all of these coins for long term, but I would definitely look at breakout trading them. The only one here that I still think there's an opportunity is Fluid coming to a decent level. Flock, I still think is at a decent valuation. Obviously, I'm bullish on Ethereum, Sol, and Bitcoin. All of them have upside, I think, but yeah, those are the ones that I would look at next. Another one that isn't directly getting a DAT, but has exposure to DATs that is worth looking into is EIGEN. So I recently invested in EIGEN. They are collaborating with a lot of DAT companies. So they're engaged with work with a lot of the top digital asset treasury companies, especially on the Ethereum side, to do Ethereum restaking. So this is kind of like a beta to the DAT narrative, although it might not be the EIGEN token itself yet, who knows. They're actually powering this. So the 100 million in ETH restaked by ETHZilla, for example, is powered by EIGEN, and we're going to see more ETH flows into EIGEN. Then obviously they make more revenue. And although they don't have like an official transparent buyback, that may be something that comes in the future as well. Clearly it's the meta. Projects are aware of this and they'll want to push it. So for that reason, I took a position, not just that reason, also the chart. The chart looks very good. So my entry was around here like a few days ago, but what is going to happen, in my opinion, is a potential breakout. So obviously you can trade this. This breakout has been coiling for a while. It's been coiling since April. So this is compressing. This may lead to a bigger move, and I just want you guys to be aware of this before it happens. So add this to your chart, set alerts for it. Be aware of this because it's also tied to the ETH narrative. So, you know, we talked about the 80-20 exposure before. This falls into that basket for me, and then I may add to that with a potential trade as well. And that, you know, rounds out my beta portfolio, with other coins like ENA as well. So A16Z also invested another 70 mil in EIGEN tokens for the EIGEN Cloud launch. Obviously, they had the rebrand, so they aren't morons, A16Z. They're actually pretty switched on and have a good track record. So clearly their backing is helping. And, you know, IP, for example, is backed by A16Z and it's been flying recently. So that gives me a bit of confidence as well. So we've done the comment of the day. We've done a gem of the day. But what we haven't done is give away money for people that are on my exchange links. So what I'm going to do is pick 3 people randomly. One, I think I only am supposed to do 2, but I'm just going to do an extra and Blofin can pay. So I'm going to pick another one here. Let's do it. Should we do 4? Okay, let's really try our luck. Let's really try our luck with the exchange here. So I've done 4, $400, $100 each. If you are UID 239 ending in 87, you've won. I'll even zoom in just to make sure you guys haven't missed it. If you are UID 239 ending in 41, you've won. If you are UID 239 ending in 551, you have won. I've summarized it here so you can see all your UIDs. You guys have won. Go into your Blofins right now, if you're signed up with me, and click on your profile in the top right or left corner and check your UID, because if you've matched, you're going to get $100 airdropped to your account. Because I'm doing this every single day, I want to make sure you're in the running. So I'm going to leave a link in the description below to my Blofin account. Sign up. It puts you in the running. And there will be times where we overlap UIDs because I'm picking them randomly. So I literally just clicked on 4. So these guys may have won before. So you can win multiple times. So you benefit just from being on my link. Also, you benefit from this amazing campaign that we put together. And this is a 2-pronged campaign. The first prong is the bonus. So if you deposit $100, you get a $30 bonus. This is amazing. This is a 30% bonus on top of obviously the giveaways that we're doing here on the show. If you deposit $500, you get $100. If you deposit $1,000, you get $200. And if you deposit $7,000, you get $1,000. So very, very good bonuses. But it gets better because as you trade, so if you're an active trader on the exchange, as you build up volume, you get even more bonuses. Now, I know these targets seem huge, but for those that trade leverage would know these aren't big figures to hit. Obviously, not all of you trade, but if you are a trader, Obviously, the deposit bonus for most people is enough, but if you're a trader, it's even better because you're going to get these bonuses as well. If you do 100 million in volume, you're going to get $9,400. So it also appeals to the whales that, are trading more size. But even if you're not trading, you still get the deposit bonus. This is just an add-on for people that do want to trade to earn even more, which makes it better than our last campaign because that was just the deposit bonus. So yeah, that's like an extra thing for you guys. When you do sign up, you're going to get that as you deposit money. But of course, if you're on my UID using the link below, you're going to qualify for this every single day. So just to recap, I'll leave a link in the description of Blofin. There's a link in the description for the free Telegram if you do want this spreadsheet that I showed on the show. And make sure before you click on those links, you comment, leave me a question for tomorrow because we're going to be running the $500 giveaway again. This is the season of giving back to the community, and I hope you guys have been enjoying the show, so I hold up my end of the bargain. All right, see you guys in the next video. See you tomorrow. Peace.